So as we come together today, even though we can't give each other actual hugs, we can give each other virtual hugs, and we're part of this giant movement in consciousness that is connecting us with each other. It's as real to me as real physical contact with someone in the actual world. I know in meditation every morning, I tune into non-local mind, I feel one with the universe, and I know there are literally millions of people meditating with me, and we are one in that space.
Yeah.
And my wife jokes that when I'm alone, I'm never lonely. She says, Dawson, you go, you're alone, like you get in your car to go somewhere, you turn off the radio, and you just go into this state of connection. And you're always with all the other people who are there. I feel that during meditation in the morning. I feel it often during the day. And it's so wonderful that we can be here to connect with each other in that realm of consciousness, even though we can't do it in the realm of physical connection right now. So I'm so grateful to be here today. Please just type into the chat box where you're dialing in from. Also, just make sure you're on mute. And I'm just welcoming everyone now. Northern Utah, Canberra, Australia. What time is it there? I'm afraid to ask. Rio Rancho, New Mexico. I've been there before. Kalamazoo, Michigan. Atlanta, Portland, Brewster, New York. Texas, I was there last year, going there again next year. Maryland, near DC. Chicago. Central European time, I think it's 11 o'clock now. The chances are good that we'll have a few people joining us from Europe as well. There's some very late owls, night owls, that often join us for these calls from Switzerland and England and Germany and France and other places. So we may find some of them there as well. There's someone, Sylvia. Sylvie, there you are. I knew it. I knew you were there. They're in England. We're in England. Newtown, Pennsylvania, Denver, Colorado, Tallahassee, Indiana. Well, it's wonderful, and I'm so grateful that we are here together to support each other and to be there for each other. And Jackie Viramontes and I talked about doing this together, and Jackie's on the call too as co-host, and we'll be sharing, both of us be sharing together. But the vision for today was to really let us feel into some of the currents of fear going through people's hearts and minds now, and then release those through tapping. And there is a lot of fear there. I tend to be in a little bit of a bubble as well, because of course I'm working with research colleagues, I'm training people, I'm doing various things online, but I don't really touch the fear that much personally. Then I read the news, and sometimes I'm aware of how high that level of frustration, anger, fear, just all the uncertainty of it is. And of course, normally in an election year, there is a lot of uncertainty anyway. But this year, 2020, we had the election, and it's on top of the pandemic that hit us all, first in China in December and January, then other parts of the world in February onward. And that was just this unprecedented, or almost unprecedented event. For a century, we haven't had a big pandemic like that, and suddenly we had that to contend with. And we also then, on top of that, had the economic crash. Even though the stock market recovered, the economies of most countries have not recovered, and it looks like recovery is going to be a long way off. Huge numbers of people have lost their jobs. I just looked up the number, actually, a few days ago. It's 305 million people. 305 million people worldwide have lost their jobs. And a lot of those jobs are not coming back. Those are permanent job losses. The percentage of people who are just too discouraged to even look for a job is really high. That's called labor force participation. It's at its lowest level in decades. Many people are just so discouraged they're not even counted among the unemployment figures because they aren't trying. They don't believe they can. Family problems, financial problems, transportation problems are stopping them. And so that number of 305,000 people unemployed is actually a low estimate. So that hit us then. Then we had all of the turmoil that followed that with all of the rioting. We had the whole awakening to racial inequality. That was really disturbing for many of us. I know we did some sessions here at EFT Universe on helping people navigate that. We had some of our African American practitioners work with us on understanding race, understanding perspective, tapping to it. We really sought to work on that issue together, raise our own consciousness, and then tap away our own unconscious, maybe, racial beliefs, our own unconscious racism that may not be even the surface of our awareness. So we worked on that. But then again, we had the election. And then the election on top of all this has just driven people crazy. In the middle of the campaign season in California here, we suddenly had the largest wildfires that we've had for years. In the first month of fire season here, more acreage burned usually than in any 10 other fire seasons. We've had massive scarring here of the landscape. And I looked at the fire map of 2017, which was a severe fire year, and the fire map of 2020. And even though fire season's only half over, a lot more acres have been burned. And even if people haven't been affected by the fires directly, the smoke has gone as far as the middle of the US. I heard from somebody that there's increased ash particles in the air in Europe. It's a long way away. And so all of these things together have been really discouraging to people. I know I was sad when long-term friends of mine, known them for more than 20 years, just told us they couldn't deal with it anymore. They were selling their house and they were getting out of here. Another friend of mine said, I'm moving to Portugal. So, people are just overwhelmed by all of this. They don't know what to do. And what we're going to do here in this call is we're going to follow a particular trajectory. Now, when you are stressed, all kinds of things happen in your body. Obviously, when you're mentally stressed, it's not just mental, it's not just emotional, it's physiological, it's biological. Your level of stress hormones like cortisol and adrenaline rises. And when your cortisol rises, that uses biological building blocks. I mentioned in my book, Genie in Your Genes, how cortisol is built out of pregnenolone and progesterone. You need pregnenolone and progesterone for healthy cell repair, and you cannibalize those molecules when you have high cortisol. Your immune system crashes because if you think about your ancestors 100,000 years ago, when they were running from a tiger, they did not need a functioning digestive system or immune system. All the effort went into the muscles and fight or flight. So your immunity crashes. But the good news is when you lower your cortisol, when you tap away that stress, your immunity bounces back really, really quickly. So we'll be evoking those fears initially. Now, you may say, well, Dawson, why are we evoking these fears? Why are we dwelling on our fears? Shouldn't we be seeking to release our fears? And the answer is yes and no. If you first of all feel the fear and you light up those neural bundles that carry those signals of stress, and you then tap, research shows that you rapidly remove the signaling of those bundles. Those bundles get calm, and this is called counter conditioning. We're now feeling the stress, we're then counter conditioning the stress by tapping, and then our level of stress is dropping, and those neural bundles quieten down. So what I want to do is have you think about the stressors first and really get those neural bundles lit up, because you can't counter condition what you don't first condition. You can't counter condition that neural response without first evoking it. So if you've been to any of our live workshops, and we're doing all of our workshops again now live but virtual, so you can go to a 4-day workshop, you can go to a 2-day workshop, and you can do it live and virtual. And so when you're at those workshops, sometimes you'll watch me or Jackie or another trainer, and we'll really be having somebody feel their feelings. And they may be very unpleasant feelings, maybe very disturbing feelings. But we know as trainers that if that person feels those feelings and then we tap, that all of the energy locked up in that biology, in that neurology, then gets counter conditioned. It'll is then released. All of that signaling stops. And now you've shown your brain and your nervous system another way to go. You've shown it that that impulse, that thought you had before that so upset you is not a cue to go into fight or flight. So what we'll do is we'll talk a bit at first about our worries, about our concerns. We'll face them because we have this wonderful tool of tapping to face them with. And so we'll talk about our fears and our worries, and we'll get those neural bundles going. And if you feel that anguish, if you feel that fear, if you feel that stress, don't worry. Research shows that within a few minutes, your cortisol level is rapidly going to drop. In that key cortisol study I did comparing EFT to talk therapy to rest, in an hour of tapping like this, cortisol dropped 24%. Huge, huge drop in only 1 hour of tapping. Other studies show that the genes that are inherent in the stress response literally are modified. The stress genes turn off and rejuvenation genes, healing genes, turn on when you tap, and an hour is enough to do that. So we're going to tap in that hour. So I encourage you, even though it might be uncomfortable, to feel those fears. Let yourself just feel that sense of unease, because you'll see you'll shift really, really quickly with tapping. So I'm going to ask you to make yourself live here in a moment, Jackie. And also, I'd love to have you share, because again, you are an active practitioner. You're a trainer, you're a mentor for our certification program, but you have an active practice as well with very lucky people to get to work with you. And I'd love to just have you share a couple of examples of how you're using this with the current set of worries that people have. And then let's ask people what they are worried about and really get those neural bundles lit, and then we'll tap, and you'll feel your level of triggering rapidly shift as you do that together. So there you go.
Hey everybody, I'm Jackie Veramontes. I recognize many of you, hello, from the course. But yeah, I'm up by Dawson, so when he was talking about the ash falling and the fires, I'm all new to it because I moved here a month ago from Los Angeles, where there are fires, but it's not like this. So yeah, Dawson, a lot of people just with COVID and being up here with the fires, 3 of my students, since I mentor for the EFT certification, 3 of my students actually live up here and have experienced fires and evacuations, and 2 of them lost their homes in fires 2 years ago. So this is all really triggering for them. So I know Dawson was talking about first needing to trigger yourself before you can de-trigger yourself with tapping. It's called exposure, right? We expose ourselves to it. Just walking around smelling the smoke in the air, they're exposed. They're exposing their body, and their body's going into fight or flight. And losing your home will never be a good thing, but how I think about tapping, and when I've worked with these students, which I don't know if they're on the call, I didn't see them. When you're doing the tapping, you're not trying to say, oh, this isn't an issue. You know, losing your home is an issue. It's never going to be something we're smiling about, but we're going to teach our body that it's safe. Almost like we're holding a child. I think of tapping as holding a child and saying, it's okay to feel scared, but right here and now we're okay. So as we're tapping, and as I tapped with some of my students who are feeling really triggered with the smoke and the ash that's here, it's like we're telling our body we're safe, because it's never going to help us to deal with a situation in a state of fight or flight. It's going to help us to deal with our problems, our situations, no matter how bad they are, from a state of calm, creativity, compassion, confidence, and we can only access those emotions when we're not triggered. So I'm not sure what people are picking as their triggers. I know some other things, Dawson, that have come up are just with finances. I know finances are uncertain. I was just talking with my husband about how we're all kind of in a state of powerlessness. A lot of the ways we felt like we had control are now not here. I have control with this salary I make every week. it's an illusion, you know, but it gives us a sense of control. So if you're struggling to pick something, maybe there's some financial triggers you could tap on with us, or the lack of freedom. I'm someone who so values my freedom and autonomy, so not being able to go visit my sister who's going to deliver a baby soon, you know, that's triggering to me in this time. Not being able to go see family or friends who are in need, that's triggering. So that loss of autonomy, I think, is something we could tap on. So yeah, Dawson is asking in the chat, what's triggering you most now, just in our current environment? Because we really want to not dismiss it. You know, we're not dismissing it with tapping. What we're doing is saying, despite this trigger, right here now, I'm okay. Right here now, I choose to show up with presence, creativity, compassion towards myself. So think of a situation where you might need some of those things. You might need to literally tap into some of those things in order to make it through. The election, Bev, yeah. Forgot to, maybe I blacked that out. Yeah. I'm trying to think of another example. You know, since I just moved up here, my house is in escrow. I'm feeling very powerless with whether these loan agents are going to approve my loan with my entrepreneurial income, my lack of W-2. So that's always triggering, but maybe I'll hear back on this call. I'm supposed to hear back today. That's what I wrote that down as mine. Loan approval. I'm feeling it in my throat. Which everyone can do that too. Once you have a trigger, you can notice, where do you carry that fight or flight in your body? I tend to feel like constriction in my throat. Some people feel a shortness of breath. So you can even notice where you feel it in your body and how strong. But yeah, Dawson, I hope some of those examples are helpful.
Diane wrote everything that you mentioned. So Diane, we were so effective at mentioning all the triggering things, we got them all covered. Just take
your kids on Zoom. Your kids on Zoom and having to monitor them. If you have to monitor their schooling, that might be triggering.
Yeah, white supremacist, fascist government, worries about it becoming fascism again, time to go shopping, feeling fear in the field, Diane. That's really interesting that we are in this energy field as human beings. There are a lot of us, and then we create these collective fields. And so you can kind of feel the fear in the air in places. And so when you feel your fear, that's one thing, but you may just be feeling the fear that's out there in the psychosphere. Empathetic anxiety, yeah, Jackie. So again, tune into your body. What is it that most triggers you? Also, your body's a good guide to this. Transgenerational historical trauma, because when we have a trauma today, it harks back to the traumas we had in previous generations. And like, I know that my wife laughs sometimes when I talk about the war. It's like, the war, why does you talk about the war so much? I mean, I was born 10 years after World War II ended, but I talk about the war sometimes like it happened last year. And it's just that I was raised in the British Empire after World War II, when the world was still talking about the war, and rationing was very, very recent. So you pick up on these things, even though they may not be your generation, maybe your parents' generation. Overall uncertainty, yeah. All of these things make us uncertain. What can we really cling to? What can we really hold on to that is certain? I want a few more here. Go ahead and put them in chat. I was born 3 months before Pearl Harbor. Yeah. Yeah. So that resonates. Fearing letting go. Gentrification. with international real estate companies buying affordable old houses, not finding health solutions. The right to vote. We've seen these long lines of people queuing up to hand in their votes personally because they've lost faith in their votes being counted if they mail in their ballots. My brown-skinned son-in-law having a finger as a gun pointed to him last week by a stranger, forests burning. And the whole world is affected by the US election. I heard one friend of mine when I was in college many years ago who was from Bangladesh, and he said that the US president is such an important figure for the whole world that the whole world should elect the US president. And that, of course, is unlikely to happen. But the point he made was really a good one, that this is one person, and that one person affects the entire future of the world. Children in cages, no end to the violence. The huge divide between us politically, that's something, that there is more of a divide, research shows, than there has been before. And then how do you come together again? If there are two sides that are just talking past each other, how do you build any kind of cohesive ability, regardless of who wins the election, to move forward together as a country? God, I'm getting depressed now talking about all this. I'm getting worried myself now. So let's just take a couple of breaths, feel into our bodies, and just allow ourselves to feel that for a moment. And our bodies are a good messenger. And then I want you to, before Jackie kicks us off with the first round of tapping, I want you to give your degree of emotional distress a score on that scale of 0 to 10, with 0 being no distress, 10 being the maximum possible distress. So if you think about, say, for example, mail-in ballots, if you're feeling a sense of triggering in your body, then give that a number. Is it a 8 out of 10, or a 6 out of 10, or a 10 out of 10, or a 4? Because we're going to track those numbers. So what's your number now? And I want you to write that number down on a piece of paper or on your wireless mobile device, because research shows that people's numbers with the EFT, people's numbers change really, really fast. So you want to write down your number so that when I ask you for your new number in a few minutes, that you have a record of your old number. People often can't even remember their old number, or can't believe their old number was so triggering because they shift so rapidly with tapping. So I want you to actually write down your number now. Just grabbing a pen and a piece of paper here. And I'll tell you what my trigger is. So my big trigger is the Electoral College. And America, we think of America as being a democracy, and I'm an American citizen, but the Electoral College is profoundly undemocratic. It means that a handful of swing voters in a handful of swing states decide the election, and the millions of people in the other states, the other 45 states, their vote doesn't count. Counts at the local level, counts at the congressional level. It's meaningless at the national level in terms of who gets to be president. Because of the electoral college, that means that only a handful of swing voters, and only in about 5 states, actually choose the president of the US. It's a profoundly undemocratic system. And of all the things that I think is a sort of a structural flaw in the way the US government is elected, I think that one triggers me. So what number am I? I'm feeling in my throat. I'm probably, because when I say the words electoral college, I'm getting upset. I can feel like tightness in my shoulders and tightness in my throat. And so I'm going to call it a 7.5, maybe an 8. Okay, so an 8. So tightness in my throat. Electoral College. So Jackie, go ahead and lead us on in the first round of tapping, and then I'll pick up where you leave off.
Perfect. Okay. All right. And if you have the capacity to say it out loud as I say it, you can, but EFT works just as well as if you're just saying it in your mind's voice, your mind's eye, saying it silently. So don't feel like it won't work if you can't say it out loud. So let's all just take a nice breath. And it might be hard to let your mind focus just on your one situation you chose. So if you have written it down on a piece of paper as we tap, it's okay to keep looking at that paper and reminding yourself of those triggering words like electoral college or loan approval with COVID finances, or, you know. So let's all just start by tapping the side of the hand. So you can do 3 or 4 fingers on the side of the hand. And I know some people's styles to do sides of the hands together. The point is to just tap, is to just stimulate that meridian on the side of the hand from here to here. Let's take a nice breath into where you're carrying that stress, that fear, that fight or flight emotion in your body. Great, and you can repeat after me or repeat just in your mind. Even though this situation triggers me, and you can say your situation out loud. Right here and now, we're okay. Even though I can feel the stress in my body. Just focus on where you're feeling it, your stomach, your throat. I have compassion for myself and how I'm feeling. And if there's resistance to that, just notice it, be mindful. Even though this situation is triggering, and I feel it in my body, I have compassion for myself and how I'm feeling. Nice breath into that part of your body. And then I start with the top of the head. Some people's style is different. So right on the top, this situation is triggering. Next point, inner eyes. And since we're on triggering times, I'd like to tap nice and slow. So inner eyes, so just 1 or 2 fingers right on the inside of that eyebrow. I'll tap on both sides. Just think of your situation. Really good. Outer eye, so close, you're really close to that eyelid on the bone or eyelash. It's triggering and I feel it. And everyone take a nice breath into where you're feeling that stress. Really good. And then under the eye, so nearly right under the pupil on the bone, the eye socket bone. Ooh, this situation is triggering me. And say your situation out loud if you can. It's abuse of power. It's lack of empathy. Say it. And then under the nose, take a nice breath into where you're feeling it. Oh, it's triggering me because, and think of one reason. We'll do that one again. Under the lip, right where the chin comes out. It's triggering me because, and fill in the blank. Really good. Collarbone, so about 2 inches out from that center of the collarbone. Oh, this stress in my body, and take a nice breath into where you're feeling it. Really good. And then under the arm. So about a hand's width underneath where the armpit is. So here. You can do both sides. When you tap with kids, it's the monkey point because they go like this. So just tap right here, nice breath. And just think of your situation or see it on your paper. Okay. And I'm gonna just add one additional point, Dawson. So it's right, it's under on the nipple line where an underwired fall or on the first rib. It's our liver meridian. So we hold anger, frustration, which a lot of these in the chat, I feel like come with some grief or frustration. And just think of your situation or say those words: electoral college, abuse of power, unstable finances. Just say it out loud. Ooh, just massage that point one more time. Take a nice breath into where you're feeling that stress. Really good. Okay, nice breath. And then hand on the heart. I like to just check in after each round. And when you think of your situation, just the situation you chose, just notice now, how triggering is it? 10 being, I couldn't be more triggered. 0 is, I feel completely at ease about this. Just notice where you fall now. Some people, if you're a little tuned out of the feeling, the number may have gone up as you tune in. That's okay. And some of you, the number may have gone down as your body is moving out of that fight or flight state. Just write your new number. And Dawson, yeah, we can do one more round. I know we'll do many more rounds, but.
Yeah, let's do one more round, and then let's have people post their first number and their second number in chat. Like mine, when I think of the Electoral College, I was an 8, and now I've gone down to maybe a 4.
Do we want to do one more round and then get the numbers?
Yes.
Okay, yeah, it's perfectly okay if your number went up. It's probably because you're coming into your body. It's almost like if I'm distracted by the day and then I'm actually feeling my feelings or journaling, it's like, oh, there's all the emotion. So that's perfectly normal on a first round. Do you want me to try the 9 Gamut on this one too?
Yes, please.
Okay, amazing. I'll do some eye movements, which are really great. So let's stick right here, side of the hand. And also notice, maybe it was an 8 in your throat and now it's not in your throat at all. Maybe it's a 0, but now you feel it like a 10 in your stomach. That means it's a 0 in your throat, right? So that emotion moved and it's in your stomach. So it's also good to notice if that location of the stress changed, kind of like our shoulders relax and then we notice our clenched jaw, you know? So sometimes stress moves around the body. So sides of the hand, even though I still feel it when I think about this situation. And just say how you're feeling. Like really verbalize it. I'm terrified. I'm pissed. Whatever it is. I have compassion for myself and how I'm feeling. Even though this situation is still triggering, it might always be triggering. I have compassion for myself and how I'm feeling. And even though I still feel the stress when I think of this situation, and I wish I could say each and every one of your specific situations, so do that for yourself. I have compassion for myself no matter how I'm feeling right now. Really good. Okay, top of the head. So verbalize that situation or see it in your mind's eye. Maybe seeing a specific television program where you saw this news come up. And then inner eye. Just think of another detail of this situation. Maybe a specific person you saw on the news. Dawson would picture a certain person in the Electoral College. Outer eye. Just take a nice breath into where you're feeling it. Oh, this stress in my body. Under the eye. This is a triggering situation. It might always be. Oof. Just read yours on your paper. Under the nose. Yeah. A lot about this situation is stressful. And think of one detail. Yeah. Under the lip, this remaining stress in my body. Really good. Collarbone, this remaining stress in my body. Under the arm. This situation hasn't changed and I'm still feeling stressed. Okay, now we're going to do something called the Nine Gamut. If you're not familiar, what we're going to do is tap the top of the hand. So it's the tendon between the ring finger and the pinky finger, right in this part of the hand. You can do either side. I'll just put my hand on my chest to remind you to keep tapping the whole time we do these eye movements. And we'll do a series of eye movements so that we can explain the science of it afterwards. But just notice how it helps some of the stress move. So what we do first is close the eyes and think of a detail of this situation you chose. And then open the eyes, look down to the right, keeping the head steady as if you're trying to look down at your right shoulder, but you can't. Look down towards your left, like you're trying to see that left shoulder, but it's out of reach, out of the peripheral. And then make nice big circles. If you need to look at my eyes for a moment to see how big I'm making them, I'm trying to trace the periphery of my gaze. So I'm still tapping and I'm breathing. Sometimes it's easy to forget. Nice big circles in one direction. This situation, carrying fear in my body. Okay, good. Go the other way with your eyes. This triggering situation. I'm allowed to feel stressed about it. So just nice big circles, like you're following the hands of a clock going round and round. This remaining stress in my body. Okay, go the other way one more time. Nice deep breath into where you're feeling that emotion. This remaining emotion in my body. And then go the other way one last time. Just noticing if your eyes are making it hard to make nice smooth circles. This remaining emotion in my body. Okay, everyone take a nice breath. We can let that tapping and the eye circles go. The full Nine Gamut has a few more steps, but I'll skip those for now. And I like to just put my hand on my heart. Take a big sigh out the mouth. And then just check in. If you have water, please drink some water. And now when you think of that specific situation you started with, and try not to pop over to a different one, how strong is the trigger now? So 10 is the most triggered I could possibly feel about it. 0 is I feel at ease about it. And just notice what it is now. And you can notice if it changed. So I know mine was in my stomach and now it's up in my throat. So I don't feel anything in my stomach now. That went from an 8 to a 0, but I still feel like a 4 or 5 in my throat. So that's a good shift. And anyone can put that in the beginning. So I love how B just put 7/4/2, right? She noticed those shifts from each round. That's great that it went all the way to 2. 8 to 5 to 4, 7 to 5 to 4. These are amazing. I've said this the last group call, Dawson, but I always feel like on these group calls, we just like lost thousands of pounds of emotional weight.
And we end up much lighter than we began.
One of you talked about the collective fear. Look, we just released it.
Yeah, half of it so far, and we'll work on releasing the other half. So thank you so much, Jackie. I so appreciate you being here and sharing with us. And Jackie just does so many different things, but one of the things she's really pioneered is our mentoring program. So in certification, we mentor people all the way through into becoming really effective practitioners. They get one-to-one mentoring with the mentor, and Jackie is one of those mentors and has guided hundreds of people now into becoming really skilled, effective, certified practitioners. And we actually will be opening certification next week. So we have a brief window of about 10 days or 2 weeks every fall and every spring when certifications open, and it'll open on October 13th. So if you're thinking about being a practitioner, becoming a practitioner, now's a great chance. We'll have about 100 people in that class, and we'll then have everyone go through it together. So you'll see that in the newsletter on October 13th. And you'll have a chance to see Jackie on skills practice calls. We actually will be having a public one that you can sit in on October 20th. And so on October 20th, you can actually sit in on one of our professional calls where we have our students all together on a call. We talk about difficult cases. The theme for that particular call is going to be releasing panic. So we'll be having case histories and shares about that, and also giving people strategies on how to approach that issue. So you'll see Jackie on that call as well. Jackie, thank you so much. And where I want to go with this next is I want to go in the direction of any belief we might have that we cannot release all of our fear and all of our stress around this. So I got down to a 2, but there's no way I could get down to a 1 or a 0, is there? We often don't believe we can. Maybe we've been upset about this for decades. I know I've been upset about the Electoral College for a long time. So I have a good, solidly established pattern of neural firing, and my neurons fire really readily when I think about this really unjust system. So I'm not going to be able to release it in just one tapping session, or maybe I can. So we'll play around with that right now. So tap along with me, starting over here, and then say, either out loud or mentally, I'm not a 0. I may never be a 0. And I'm safe now. I wish I could be a 0. I wish I could release all my stress. I wish my cortisol were way down. But it's not. Even though I've just spent 20 minutes tapping, my number is still up there. I may never be able to release all the stress. Unless perhaps I do. Maybe I'll surprise myself and I'll release the stress. And maybe I won't. Maybe my numbers will go up. And even if they do, I'm going to be kind and compassionate toward myself. I'm a good person. I'm doing my best. And I'm safe now. Whether or not I release my stress. Even if I never release all my stress, I'm still a good person, and I'm safe now. Tap on the top of your head. I may never release all my stress. Tune into your body and see if you're shifting. I know I just took a big deep breath. Maybe you did too. Eyebrow points. I may never release all my stress. Side of the eye. I may never release all my stress. Under your eye. Even though I release some stress, under your nose, I may never release all stress. Under your lower lip, unless I do. I could release all stress. Collarbone points around this problem. I choose to release all stress around this problem. Under your arms. And I love and accept myself. Side of hand, whether or not I release all stress. Then we'll go back to our abbreviated form of the 9 gamut routine. So close your eyes and open them while you tap the gamut point on the back of your hand. Look hard down to the left and say, all this stress. Hard down to the right, all this stress. And then imagine you're looking at a giant clock. You keep your head steady, move just your eyes, and look up at 12. All this stress. Look at 1. All this stress. Without moving your head, move on your eyes, look at 2. All this stress. 3. Stress. 4. Stress. 5. Stress. 6. Stress. 7. 8. 9. 10. 11. 12. 1. 2. 3. Stress. Now move your eyes in the opposite direction. So 3, then 2. 1. 12. Stress. 11. 10. 9. 8. 7. 6. 5. 4. 3. 2. 1. 12. 11. 10. 9. Now reverse again. 10. 11. 12. 1. 2. 3. Reverse again. 2. 1. 12. Stay with 12 for a moment. Stress. And then stop tapping. I've been making you work so hard. You probably have eye strain by now. I know in my live classes, people raise their hands and say, Dawson, you make me work my eye muscles so hard I've got eye strain. We aren't used to doing that. And so using these very little used muscles in our peripheral vision. And Jackie mentioned the science behind all of this. And what this does is these eye movements reenact the way our brains rewire themselves during sleep. So in sleep, you're in very slow brainwave sleep most of the night. That's delta sleep, where your neurons are firing at about 0 to 4 cycles per second, about the same pace we were tapping at. That's about 2 cycles per second. So that's where you are most of the night in delta sleep. Every roughly 90 minutes, you emerge into theta sleep, faster rhythm, 4 to 8 cycles per second. And when you're in theta, your eyes move around like crazy. and you're literally solving problems symbolically in your dreams. That's rapid eye movement sleep. Your eyes move around a lot in theta sleep. So they don't move around in delta sleep. They do move around in theta sleep. Theta sleep, rapid eye movement sleep, is where our brains symbolically are building scenarios that solve problems. So when we do the 9 Gamut eye movements, we're literally recreating that problem-solving capacity of our brains that we have during rapid eye movement sleep. And we find that that rapidly changes the way the brain holds stress, trauma, and fear. So it looks weird to see this person sitting there tapping the spot and doing the eye movements, but that's the rationale behind it. Very, very powerful. When we put people in MRIs and EEGs, we see them changing their brain function immediately when they start doing the eye movements. It's the single most powerful part of the EFT method that we find in research using these brain scanning imaging machines. So that's why we do it, and it's powerful at releasing. So now we've tapped on the belief that we can never get over our frustration. And we probably have felt our body shift. So go ahead and write in your first and last numbers here. So mine began at an 8. My number right now is under 1. I'll call it a 1. Maybe it's a 0. May take a while to settle in. 7 to 1. So Gene went from 7 to a 1. We'll probably get a few zeros there. 8 to 2, 10 to 3, 10 to 5, 8 to 2, 2 to 0. Carol, Barbara, 0. Linda, 0. B, 0. Quite a few zeros. Okay, good. Wow. And Cecilia, you went all the way from 10 to a 0, 9 to a 3. And then what tends to happen is that we'll tend to keep on that trajectory of healing. So often you'll end up at a 2 or 3 or maybe a 1. But then if you think back about the problem tomorrow, or even in a couple of hours, often the energy system will have settled back down in its new configuration, and you'll find that spontaneously healing has continued to happen, and you'll be a low number later on. So if I look at my little pad tomorrow, and it says Electoral College, and I was an 8, and I went down to a 1, maybe I'll be at a 0 within an hour. Maybe tomorrow I'll check that again. So let's see. I'd love to have a couple of people who went to a 0 tell us what they were tapping on and what happened for them in their bodies. Cecilia, would you mind sharing? I don't want to impose on you. If you don't feel comfortable, it's totally fine. But if you do feel comfortable, I'd love to hear what you felt in your body. If you'd like to disclose what you were working with, that's fine too. Just unmute yourself by clicking on your mute button, and then we'll be able to. There you are.
Hi. Is it okay?
You know, your volume is a little bit high, so
Okay.
if you're on your computer, you could perhaps just back off a little bit, or if you're on
Okay.
okay. That's better. Good. Okay.
Okay. So I was working on lack of freedom. I'm really a social person and miss that tremendously. So I was very angry, about that, feeling it tight in my shoulders initially, and then it went into more of my neck. But now after the eye movement to a 0, so thank you. Feels much better.
What was it before the eye movement?
It was at a 2. It went from 10 to 2 and then 2 to the 0. Well, no, then it was 10 to 1 and then 0. So, yeah.
That's pretty good. If you have something that's a low number, you can't seem to budge below that 2 or that 3 or that low number, the eye movements will often just help you break through and settle out at a 0, and you'll feel it then in your body.
And I listen to you every morning, so I'm already in tune with you so much. So thank you very much.
Oh, it's a pleasure. And I'm there with you every morning as well, because I just picture our whole community of consciousness together. When I meditate, I can feel everyone in it, and it's just a joy.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. I so appreciate that. Let's have one more person share before the end of our time together. It's getting close to the end of the hour here. And then I also, Bev, I see you're on, and Bev Nirenberg has been my wonderful partner in really making the Tapping Place shine. And she's on the Tapping Place as a practitioner many hours of the day. If you need tapping, if you need help anytime, go to the Tapping Place and you'll find Bev and other certified practitioners there available to help you. And again, it's just tappingplace.com. I'm going to drop that in chat here, tappingplace.com. It's been such a pleasure too to hear Bev share with me. Bev's on there right now. Bev share with me some of the people who've been on there. They've got on Tapping Place. They're really panicked. They're really upset. They're really stressed. And then just sometimes a 10-minute session, all of that goes away. So Bev's a real pro in helping people through there. And I'm really grateful to Bev for making the Tapping Place dream, this dream of a on-demand virtual tapping coach, a reality. So thank you so much. Make sure you take advantage of that. Let's have one more person share. And Beth, let's have you share. You went from a 7, that's Beth Strohecker. You went from a 7 to a 1. If you don't mind sharing, I see you're on your phone, but if you're able to, can you unmute yourself? Okay.
Unmute. Unmute.
There we go.
Yes. So I'm in Montreal, and my son just moved from Virginia to DC, rather the DC, Virginia area where he taught in universities for 10 years, to Texas, near where my home and his sister is. We're expats, and I just have been, he's unemployed, no health care, and going to COVID land, okay? And I'm just very concerned. But I'm down to a 1. I'm down to a 1 now, so that helps a lot. But that's just been my huge wake up at night, sit straight up in my bed, start tapping, try not to wake up my husband. So today, just now tonight, was a very good opportunity for me to even face that. Now, I've been very diligently tapping for months now. I took a course with Peta Stapleton, and I'm reading her book, and I'm reading everything that I can get my hands on from you and Pat Carrington. And so I'm very interested in your course, but I couldn't face this issue. So tonight, this was my issue, in the courage of the group, just the collective support, okay? So I could almost cry. It feels like such a relief, and I appreciate it.
I'm so glad you got that relief. I'm so glad you've been able to have that shift. And again, what you're facing is a real situation. Your son really has moved to Texas, and he really doesn't have insurance, and he doesn't have a job. And so it's not like this is a made up worry or an idle fear. It's a real situation. And so we need to have these tools during those real life situations. We need to have these tools to help us be resilient, and then to have the habit of resilience, and then be able to be that person that is resilient in your family, because obviously he now needs you to be strong.
Yes, the phone calls, the phone calls, incoming, when the phone would ring.
Yeah.
I just, so again, it was major for me to even face how I feel about this. There many things that I'm facing one at a time with tapping, and finding huge relief. And I just feel like this is the greatest thing I've ever encountered. Okay, as people say, the greatest thing since sliced bread. Well, this is the greatest thing since canned tuna for me.
And you know what I just want to pick up on one thing you said there, Beth, and that is that you're facing these things and tapping on them one by one. And that's important because if you try and deal with a lot of them at the same time, it's easy to get overwhelmed. But find one, tap on that, and then what's called in EFT the generalization effect. All similar things get neutralized a little bit, especially if you do the Nine Gamut on that one thing. You'll find all similar things with a similar emotional flavor to them, then all improve slightly, and then you move on to something else. And Peter Stapleton also has, and I talk about this in the EFT manual, the personal peace procedure. So you make a list of things,
Yes.
and then just one after the other, tap on them. And you'll be surprised at how quickly your whole energy ecosystem starts to shift and correct itself.
Very good. Yes. Thank you. So I will look for you every morning now too.
Yeah, I do the meditation. I meditate every morning, and it really sets me up. So the way you do meditation
Yes.
relative to EFT is, first of all, you meditate in the morning. And then when you've got that baseline going, if something happens during the day to upset you, you then tap. That's the way to use those two potent stress reduction techniques together in combination. And they really will help you. So I'm glad it's working for you. And I know it will keep on working. So let's now finish up with a round of tapping and then a round of visualization on the whole, on us being part of this loving, supportive energy ecosystem, which we truly are. I can feel your energy there. I can feel the love that's present here. And I can feel, as Jackie was saying, all the fear, all the stress that has fallen away. I mean, I didn't even know I was an 8 around the electoral college. I didn't even realize that. I was carrying this around, and it never occurred to me to tap. And I wrote the 3rd and 4th editions of the EFT manual. How dumb is that? I wasn't tapping on this thing, you know. I was discussing it with my son-in-law, who's an attorney and who's also upset about it. And here, you know, I wasn't tapping. Crazy. So let's wind up and finish up with this visualization of each other and with the tapping sequence. And we'll start again on the side of the hand and say, just generally speaking, there are a lot of reasons I could be afraid right now. And I choose love. There's so many reasons I could be afraid. I know I have control of my consciousness. And I choose love. There are so many things of which I have no control. And some of them are terrifying. And the only thing over which I have complete control is my consciousness. And I choose to fill my consciousness every day with love and light and peace and joy. I choose to fill my consciousness every day with love and light and peace and joy. The love and peace within me are greater than the confusion in the world. And I affirm my resilience. I affirm my ability to fill my own experience with peace, love, and joy. Tap the top of your head. Control. eyebrow point, control, side of eye, control, under your eye, control, under your nose, control. Notice any shifts in your body, like I just had a huge deep breath and my shoulders dropped about an inch. Notice your body, chin, control. Collarbone, control. Underarm, control. That liver point that Jackie showed you, under your nipple, under your, just above your lowest rib, your liver meridian, control. And one last time on the side of hand point, control. And even though there is so much I can't control in the world, I can control my consciousness. And I choose to fill it with peace, love, light, and joy. Okay, take a breath now. Just let this all settle into your body. Just quit tapping, just letting it all really settle into your cells. It takes a few moments to let the energy just reconstitute itself in this new configuration. So that's why we have a little bit of a break after either eco meditation or tapping, just to give our bodies time to settle into this new pattern. So go ahead and tap whenever you need to. We'll post this replay of this session. You can watch it whenever you want to. You can follow along with the tapping routines that Jackie did or I did. If you need to work with a practitioner, go to tappingplace.com, work with Bev or Sarah, or one of the other wonderful people who's available to you there for a session. If you'd like to get certified, please join us for the next webinar we have, which will be on certification, chance to answer all your questions about it. It's a great way to just make a living in a profession where you're loving and serving people and helping them work through all of their issues. You'll hear from many people who've graduated from our certification program. We'll have little videos of them, we'll have them on live, and you'll hear them talking about how they changed careers, some of them, how they began doing this and they found a career that was incredibly emotionally rewarding, helping people as they moved through their suffering and found the transformation that tapping brings. So that's a wonderful thing to do with your waking hours. So with that, just let's visualize each other. Let's visualize this beautiful state in consciousness that we've created together. Let's again hold ourselves and give ourselves that little tapping hug, connecting, feeling ourselves in the same space in consciousness, loving ourselves. Ah, wow. I feel so privileged to have had this hour with you, this time to really connect in the heart, connect in the spirit, connect in the space of healing, and drop some of that fear. We always have that option. We can drop any fear and all fear anytime we choose, and there's no reason to carry it around with you day after day. You deserve a life that is free of that fear. When you do, when you make that commitment, do the personal peace procedure, pick one thing, and then the next thing, and then the next thing, and work down your list of things, and then eventually drop huge amounts of your trauma. What starts to happen is your innate potential unfolds. You start to do things and think things and become things and create things you never dreamed of before. I know I made a commitment to meditate every single day, and I made that commitment in the year 2000. And I was not very happy back then. Within a year, money changed, career changed, my marriage changed, my relationships with my children changed. Everything shifted for me dramatically. I discovered EFT the following year, and then everything shifted for me a whole lot more. So these techniques truly can change your life. They can liberate your potential, and you find yourself singing and dancing and being happy in the midst of the chaos around you. So I look forward to dancing with you in consciousness, dancing with you probably sometime together in person again. And till then, every blessing. We are connected and we are greater than the challenges in the world. They are temporary. We are eternal. Thank you so much. Thank you.